Hello and welcome to Altitude, a show for youth and adults alike, talking about STEM, science, technology, engineering, the arts, and mathematics. This program is for you. We hope that you enjoy the program, and today we have a lineup really focused around engineering, and we also have a guest that will speak to us about the entire concept of digital media and digital art and graphics design. So today with me, as always, I have the pleasure of having my sidekick and guest, Mr. Deejay Mickey Breeze. Mickey, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, Mr. Wulf.
That's fantastic, fantastic. So how's life treating you? You working on any new projects?
So far, so good. Just been making sure to keep my shows and everything in line. I actually am working on a project at the moment, releasing something in February.
Okay.
Extended play.
The EP, right?
Yes,
Is that
indeed.
what they call it? All
Yes,
right,
indeed.
all right. So what, have you come across any new software, anything you want to share with us, maybe this show or next show?
I have, I would say a lot of new hardware options I've been exploring as well as software. At least in the DJing market, there's been a lot more software advancements as far as how people can operate and manipulate music. And then as far as hardware, there's just a lot of new shiny buttons out there that I'm trying to press.
Yeah, I saw you demoing at, I think it must have been, although not a sponsor, but Guitar Center. You just tore up the place, had the disco lights going, the light. You must have threw a party at the showroom floor, so it's always a pleasure watching you stream live. So you have to be sure to I have to set my notifications so that I catch you the first time through.
Yes, indeed.
So tell me a little bit about an organization that you had mentioned while we were talking earlier, Future Squad. Is that something maybe you can share a little bit about?
Today's Future Sound. Okay. Today's Future Sound actually is a bit of a collective or an organization that goes around the country. I have seen them more closely in Oakland, but basically they go around teaming up with colleges and different schools and giving what they would call beat therapy to children. And that hits really close to home for me because I started producing at about like 8 years old on this little handheld game system, but there weren't a lot of people who could help hone that just because not a lot of people saw much worth of giving direction of something that advanced to a young mind. But starting later this month or early next month, I'm actually going to begin doing a series on production tips and tricks that I've learned either over the years or stuff that I'm still trying to figure out and kind of putting it into motion for today's Future Sound.
Well, how's school coming?
School is going well. I'm on track to graduate.
That's a good thing.
I'm trying to get out of here as soon as I can.
That's right, you're about ready to. Now, as we counsel students, are you looking at going into maybe a certificate program, associates, or maybe a 2-year, 4-year type situation?
I've been looking into a few places, such as Berkeley or IPR. My original plan actually was to go to McNally Smith before the college actually shut down. I was planning on doing PSEO there and getting some sort of scholarship program going on, but a lot of what I'm focused on as far as my career is concerned after school is just focusing on, I would say, marketing strategy, getting things like BMI and ASCAP and stuff in line and figuring out how to promote and get a lot of the groundwork done,
Now tell me just real quickly, what is BMI and what is ASCAP, just if you can share that? Or what it is, sort of.
BMI and ASCAP are music licensing companies. Okay. So basically, if you have a song, an EP, an album or something that you would have put out, BMI and ASCAP licenses all of those songs and actually tracks them and how they're being streamed and distributed and sold and things like that. So BMI and ASCAP, I would say, BMI or ASCAP, I would say, are the #1 ways in the music industry to actually collect off of your art form.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, I certainly thank you again for stopping in, and as the show develops, we're hopefully will bring your equipment.
Yes, indeed.
Over a few times, we'll do some breakouts.
Yes,
and,
indeed.
Hear that DJ Mickey Breeze sound. So thank you very much, sir.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Welcome back. And with me now is Mrs. Tiffany O'Neal Walker. Tiffany, how are you doing?
I'm doing great tonight.
So welcome to Altitude.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Altitude is about science, you hear about STEM, right? But we're science, technology, engineering, and math. It's very popular, but we oftentimes forget that there's an A element, an artistic element to most technical people. So we thank you for taking the time to join us this
Absolutely.
evening. So what do you do, Tiffany?
I am the production art supervisor for a local large print company.
Okay, fantastic. And
Yeah.
production supervisor, what does that mean? Do you do graphics? Do you do videos? Or do you paint?
Production art is, it's kind of a step between an absolute creative graphic person and a completely technical graphic person. And what I mean by that is a lot of our clients will work with ad agencies or other creative agencies to get a base of their signage designed. And then we will take that and create all of the various elements that they might need that mimic that same look that they had created with an outside creative agency.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you are a master or mistress of many, many types of tools, graphics tools behind
Correct.
the scenes, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So what type of education or what type of experience would a young person need to maybe pursue the type of job that you have? Where would they start?
I would say at the baseline start at least a AA. My personal educational background is an Associate of Applied Science in Visual Communications. With that, I could have gone any number of directions. I could have tried to go a straight creative route. I chose to go technically behind the scenes with a printer because, quite frankly, that was where the money was. So I went that route. A lot of people will go into game design. There's a lot of, I'm sure, variations of the degree now, but I would definitely recommend your basic technical 2-year degree. When I was in school, it was an 18-month degree. So you're literally in school, minimal amount of time. They put you right into the programs you need to know, and you come out trained and ready to hit the ground running and actually producing in
Sure.
the tools that are available.
Sure. Now, what inspired you to go for that particular AA? What kind of work did you do in high school? Or did you draw a lot? Did you paint?
Yes, I loved to draw. I loved working with clay and pottery class. I actually loved shop, working with wood.
Really?
Yeah, and
Okay.
so I just really was always drawn to art and colors and different textures and mediums. And I actually thought going through school that I would want to do something more creative where I come up with original ideas. Very quickly learned at the end of graduation, you present a portfolio of your work. And I was looking at my work, my original work compared to my peers. And I was like, no way, no way are you, my ideas just didn't compare to a lot of I would say the leaders in my class. And so I got very realistic, and that's also a reason why I chose the technical route, because I said, well, you need your work to kind of stand out to go creative. But that didn't put me out of the art running, because you still need an artistic eye. There's math involved in design.
Oh, really? Math?
Yes,
Interesting.
absolutely. Threes and odd numbers look better visually to the eyes. Varying sizes of things look better to the eye, and also certain patterning of things look more visually pleasing in design. So there's a kind of tie-in to that scientific and math background too.
Yeah, so the artistic thing is also kind of a look and feel, like you call it the eye. You have that sense for what it takes to make something look visually attractive.
Yep.
That's fantastic. I also noticed that you have many tools, and are there any particular specific tools that a young person could start to learn? I know I've heard of like Adobe Illustrator, that might be at the high end, but if you could share.
No, I would say the entire Adobe Creative Suite. So you can get your hands on Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign. That's going to carry you through anything. Those have been the tools that I've been doing this for over 20 years now. Wow, that makes me feel old. But those tools are the ones that have been there and are staying around. Well, InDesign's a little newer than Photoshop and Illustrator, but Photoshop and Illustrator have been around my entire career and training. InDesign came in, but again, it's an Adobe tool and it's had staying power. It actually burnt out one of its competitors that we used to use.
Wow.
And made it fall by the wayside. So I say you're into those 3 programs, you're good to go. That's what you're going to need.
Fantastic. So that actually leaves a lot of options too. So if you're in high school, you can start to look at maybe local community colleges or technical colleges that offer graphics design and illustration. Tell me a little bit about, or can you share how that then would tie with like a web developer or other people that support some of the work that you do maybe? Is there a web development aspect to that for coding?
There's design, I would say, like a user interface designer. Those are the people that figure out how to configure a web page, how to make it look attractive, how to make it easy to navigate. Anybody who wants to specifically prepare graphics for web preview or even the gaming industry, there's a lot of people behind the scenes doing renderings and animations and things of that nature. My schooling included introduction to animation and also video editing. So all of those things are so related. A lot of the file formats are the same. A lot of the training and actually the program tools, once you know one, you go into another. You and I have worked through some things that I didn't know, and you kind of learn different tools work in different programs. Same tools work in different programs, kind of the same way.
Fantastic. So are there any other things on the horizon that you are going to pursue, do you think, with the whole realm of
My career?
yeah?
I'm pretty comfortable where I'm at right now, and it's got a good life balance for where I'm at right now. There'd be one or two things in my future. Either I'd continue on into more management, maybe even, I don't want to let go of the artwork, and moving higher up in management would be letting go of my day-to-day interaction with the tools, and or I'd maybe choose a completely different but related, maybe getting more into web developing or something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic. And I think you had shared with me earlier that you can actually work from home some days.
Yeah.
Your job also allows you to work from home.
Absolutely.
So that's always a big perk.
It's huge.
It's very huge.
We were kind of a trailblazer at my company to be able to do that. So I'm pretty proud of that, helping them to see the value that, this function can be performed away.
Sure.
Can trust that it's happening. And now it's kind of spread to some other areas.
So before we end our interview, are there any particular, can you just share real briefly about the types of jobs that a high school student would then maybe take a couple of classes and maybe work as an apprentice or an internship at a place, like junior developer, junior digital graphics design artist or something like that?
I don't know that, I can speak to my particular company. We don't take in high school students. We do, I take that back. We worked specifically with a local high school that had kind of a apprenticeship program within where I had a high school student shadowing me.
Sure.
That was kind of a one-off. It doesn't seem to be the norm, but I think the biggest thing that would have value for a high school student right now is to dive into the program, see what kind of free trials are out there for Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop, and get in and play with it, follow YouTube, see, follow forums, whatever,
Self-taught,
dive in.
self-learning.
Yeah, just dive in and see, and then see if there's any local community ed classes that might have intros to some of those things.
Sure, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Ms. O'Neal Walker, thank you very much for your time tonight.
you for
Thank
having
you
me.
for being on Altitude. Welcome back. With me now is Porsche Page. Porsche, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. So you are here with us today to talk about your career, your lifestyle, education, and anything else that you can impart on our youth to talk about the realm of engineering. But you in particular are at a point in your career where you are a senior engineer. Can you tell us a little bit about your job, your title, and what that means?
Absolutely. Well, my title is a management engineer, and I work for Gillette Children's Specialty Healthcare in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I am an industrial engineer by trade, and I also have a master's in business administration degree. And so what that does is couple two different backgrounds together. You're partially an engineer and partially a business consultant. And so I consult managers and healthcare professionals in different areas of the healthcare organization, such as processes, staffing and analysis, as well as performance excellence.
Wow. So you've taken a balance of engineering, a very technical, very scientific type education and experience, and combined it with senior leadership management role. I'm impressed. I didn't even know that there was a management engineer, but that's absolutely impressive, especially in an industry like healthcare, right? You're working with young children at Gillette, and their lives depend on what your process and procedures that go into that, correct?
Absolutely. And what we're trying to do is make sure that we provide safe and quality health care to our patients.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's if not world renowned, it's a nationally renowned hospital. So let's move on to maybe how did you get to that particular job? I mean, can you share a little bit when you were young? I mean, did you always want to go into all this senior leadership and engineering degree, or what were you thinking when you were in 9th, 10th grade?
Well, by the 8th grade, 9th grade, I thought I wanted to be a teacher.
Oh,
And
a beautiful job.
members of my community from NSBE Junior and the NSBE Alumni Chapter invited high school students out to their Saturday activities and programming. And that started to influence my decision as to how I wanted to utilize my math and science skills. So at first I thought I wanted to utilize math and science and become a teacher, but then I found out that I could use those same skills and become an engineer.
Wow, that is incredible. And that is a great career trajectory to have too. I mean, I'm sure that you had a lot of experiences. Have you traveled a lot? Maybe done anything in particular in your career that you'd like to highlight?
Absolutely. So when I was a student at Georgia Tech in the Industrial and Systems Engineering program, I had the opportunity to study abroad at the National University of Singapore, as well as Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, all within 6 weeks.
So you've literally seen almost the world.
Pretty much. We were 13 hours ahead.
13 hours ahead. Yeah,
Yep.
talk about jet lag, right?
Absolutely.
So you mentioned NSBE, which is the National Society for Black Engineers. Tell me a little bit about either your experience with it, what has happened locally, and then maybe how your family has benefited from it.
Absolutely. So within my alumni chapter, that was in Austin, Texas, they decided to start a NSBE Junior chapter at my high school. And I was probably one of 3 to 5 students who was interested, and I became the president of the NSBE Junior High School program. And so that really exposed me at a young age to the National Society of Black Engineers national program.
Gotcha.
And with that exposure, I was led to internships. And so I started in corporate America at 17 years old, working for Motorola as an intern. And I was interested in electrical engineering initially, and then I somewhat found my way to industrial engineering.
Fantastic. And the shift in that is pretty incredible, that you've gone and was able to be very flexible and adaptive to those particular opportunities that came along. So it sounds like you didn't have one particular linear or straight line to where you wanted to be. You actually used the opportunities that were presented to you at that particular time to shift and adapt in using your previous experiences.
Absolutely, and I went on to do another 4 additional summers at Motorola. And so for a total of 5 summers as a high school student, I was, doing things that I never even thought I was able to do. And so 3 years after graduating from college, I went on to become a systems engineer for General Dynamics. And that's the defense industry where we provided military vehicles to the U.S. Army and the Marines and U.S. allies.
Wow, fantastic.
And so as I was a student at Georgia Tech, 9/11 happened. And then 3 years later, I was actually working on military vehicles in Iraq.
Now, were you a military person or a civilian?
I was a civilian.
Okay, so you're a civilian working in military.
Correct.
And that's always an option as well. You don't always have to get that type of experience by joining the military. You can actually work in the military field without.
Absolutely, and it was such a delight to work along servicemen and ex-servicemen and veterans. I have those in my family, and so it was such a privilege to work with them every day. And that actually led me into a career in healthcare because I was receiving field problem reports on vehicles, and some of those were safety related. Some of our soldiers who were injured in military vehicles. And so I was always exposed to how it impacted humans. And so I used that as a career transitioning description to say, okay, I'm still interested in saving lives, but now I want to do it in a healthcare environment.
That's wonderful, just completely wonderful. So let's loop back to Nesby Jr. So you were a product and benefited from Nesby Jr. in Texas.
Yes.
And you also had mentioned along the way when we were talking earlier about inroads. So you
Yes.
started your internship as an inroads intern. And so folks must have counselors or people have introduced you to those things, much like this show is hoping to bring those type of programs to light. But the actual question is, locally here, there was a first year for a program, and your family actually benefited from it, right? Or you participated in it. Could you share what happened out at the Earl Brown Elementary School this spring?
Yes, last summer I had 2 children that were involved in the Nesby Seek summer program. It was a 3-week program in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, sponsored by Cummins. And the children were exposed to different types of programming activities for 3 weeks for free. And it was such a great exposure to a national program that I was once involved in. And so when I recognized it was coming to Minnesota for the first time ever, I said, yes, this is something that I want my children to be exposed to and involved in at an early age.
Yes, it's those early development are important. Is there any feedback that your children have given you that you would like to highlight possibly? I know I'm putting you on the spot for some questions.
Yes, on the last day of the summer camp, my son said he was a project manager. So it gave the children the opportunity to do presentations, to build their communication, written and verbal skills, as well as learn technical skills as well.
Absolutely. Now, can you share a little bit about what you saw there? Were there competitions? Did they have daily exercises? And then what was maybe for you as a parent, because I know there was a lot of college students that were local and that flew in, you know, to run the camp during July. But was there any one thing that you would like to share with a parent of a young student, maybe in elementary school or early middle school, that you'd really want to make sure that they understand needs to happen?
I would definitely say make the sacrifice to get your children to these camps. They're offered free of charge, and it was great programming and activities that a lot of our children do not get exposure to until it's far too late. And this is only going to prepare them better for their careers and set them on the trajectory for a STEM career.
And a very successful and
And a
sustainable
successful
life.
and sustainable life.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you very much. I sure appreciate your time coming here this evening. I know that it's right after work hours, but we sure appreciate you coming, Porsha.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Welcome back to this segment of Altitude. And with me, I have Fredrick Blocton, President of UPNET Technologies. Fredrick, how are you doing today, sir?
Good.
It's good to see you.
Thank
Good to see you.
thank
Welcome.
you for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Yep.
So, do you mind if I call you Fred?
That's fine.
Fantastic.
Just for you only.
Just for me only?
Yep.
All right, Fred. Well, thank you very much, sir.
Yep.
So tonight we're here to talk about leadership and what it's like to be an African-American male in a very senior position of a big company, in a big technology company with a lot of engineers and, STEM-related fields.
Sure.
So Fred, tell me a little bit about what you do as the president of your company.
Sure. So the ball, kind of stops here, right? It's like having the big hatchet over your head to make sure that everything below you is working. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that come up as a president or a leader of any company is employees. Mm-hmm. And you hire people with the idea that they're going to have, longevity with your company. And in order to do that, as the president, I'm responsible for continuing to open the doors so that we have more opportunities for our employees and the growth, right? And it's really important in leadership that you also recognize that employees have families. Mm-hmm. And it's all tied into what they're doing at their job and how you're treating them at the job. So it's a big deal as being a leader to be conscious, at all times, not only about your employees, but also about customers.
Yeah, absolutely. So in this particular role, there's a lot of responsibility as a president.
Yes.
When you were young, could you envision yourself being the president of a company, or can you share a little bit about how you got to where you're at? Maybe a story or two along that pathway?
I don't know. I think leadership starts as you understand that you are a leader, right? And so I've always been projected. I have my family is based in education, right? And so they've always preached, lead or stay out. Don't always, accept what's happening. You always got to challenge the status quo. So as a kid, in my senior year in high school, I was the chair of our treasury for our church. And as a senior in high school. So I took some leadership positions as a young person, right? And then, Michael, it's like what you do. You just get pushed up, to the top, to take the responsibility.
But you have to be a risk taker too. I mean, were you ever uncomfortable when you stepped into those leadership position as a young person?
I'm uncomfortable almost every day, right? Okay. Because it's a challenge. I mean, and people, they expect different of you. Like when I say I'm president, right, it's not, they're like, oh, it means something, outside of you, and not that, it's an ego trip or anything, but it's a responsibility because they expect you to say and do stuff different, at that time, right?
Well, you're truly vested with that company. You have a stake in the company's success and or its failure. You're not just punching a clock, and if something's left on the table, you can walk away, pick it up the next morning.
Doesn't work that way. It's 24/7.
Yeah.
Right.
Speaking of 24/7, the last time I think we had an actual work conversation was a year ago for the NFL Super Bowl. Can you share a little bit about one major project like that?
Sure. So UPNET Technologies, we have a platform that we patented, and we actually compete with SAP and other large-scale, ERPs, as you know, right? And so what we did is we worked with the Minnesota Vikings and the NFL during the Super Bowl. And what we did is we built a solution to be able to capture all of the moving numbers and people and activities to produce metrics around what happened at the Super Bowl, who worked on it, what's the economic impact, how many dollars was spent, downtown, out in the suburbs.
So in words that I can understand then, because that was a lot, I know you're at that president level, but what you're saying is for every single business, every single transaction that was part of the Super Bowl economy, all the cash register transactions of the business reports, all of that, you took all that data, all the ticket sales, maybe what restaurants people ate at, how many, what the revenue for other stores were. You bought all that into this big kind of database, and then you use people that had skills in like data science or analytics, and what do they call that when you do EDI transfers and all the EDI, electronic data interchange, where you take data here, you transform it and you map it so it fits into your database. So you're saying you were responsible for all these millions and millions of transactions to come up with a report
Yep.
that tells them exactly where this went,
Where every dollar went.
for every dollar went.
Where every dollar. Yep.
That's incredible because that was a lot of transactions.
Yep, but every transaction goes somewhere. Remember that, right? And it always lands somewhere, right? And so what our engine does is exactly what you explained. We sit here and we can transact any or transfer any data point from anywhere in the world. And so what happens from an EDI standpoint,
wow. Okay.
so the EDI says, hey, we had transactions, Apple had 142 transactions, that equal $540,000, which dropped into the bucket. Apple registered in our system so we could always do some check and balances against them, who they are, right? And so we produced those metrics, and we could tell you who was black, white, green, purple, working on the project. Yep.
Fantastic. That is truly amazing. So, in a way, what you did is you were working in an area where there's actually a market now for like data science.
Yes.
You're going to hear a lot of people talking about data science, data analytics, and so maybe for the young people in our audience, they might really seriously take a look at this because coding is one thing, but then actually being able to understand and interpret the data is another skill.
That's correct.
Right? So, and that's an emerging, associates and 4-year degree and certifications, learning those types of tools.
Right. And then what I'll do is I'll add to those tools because there's a word that always miss, and it's called algorithms.
Yeah.
Right? And so the algorithms are really what, transfers out to the world. They got AI and other things now, but algorithms build those AIs because they produce and take in all the data in, right?
Yeah.
Garbage in, garbage out,
Right.
good data in, good data out, right? And so those algorithms are what kids are really start to think about as they're young because it goes into the technical field, but it also uses their analytical skills around how and what they see that needs to be produced. The one thing that I believe in, and I think is going to be very prevalent here today, a lot of times we like to go backwards and do research, but a lot of times we're researching on bad data, right?
Missing data.
Yeah, it's bad data. But what I think is a good thing for us to start thinking about in this world is ground zero. Why do we go back? Let's go forward, right? And then we could grab enough data in 6 months or a year to really put together a trending plan.
Sure. As you were talking, and I don't mean to diminish in any way this, but the example that was running through my mind was I think of, when I attempted to play basketball as a younger person, you always try to watch your opponent and see which way they move and try to figure out so that you anticipate where they're going to be at. You don't anticipate where they went. Is that what you're saying? You anticipate where they're going to be at and start working on those algorithms and then work towards the future, if you will, or project forward.
That's correct.
So the word algorithm, we'll just play on that real briefly, is you are also, if I'm not mistaken, the president of a local chapter of a technical organization. Can you share a little bit about that and how a student would learn algorithms in that program?
Sure. And it's called the Black Data Processing Associates, BDPA, which we train young kids from level 1, level 2, level 3, all the way up to advanced. And what we do is we start working with the kids at a very young age. Right now we're starting with first graders.
I saw that at the banquet, yeah.
Yep, and we had a third grader who came up and did an incredible speech about what he learned in class around algorithms, around learning how to dissect what things really mean so that you know what to input so that you get the output. And you have to build the algorithms in between there to be able to do both. And these kids are tracking with that right now, and first graders and second and third graders
It's
are just
never too young. Yeah, these kids are pretty amazing out there, and so hopefully somebody in our audience will be able to, either a parent or a auntie or somebody will be able to get this message back to these students to say it's never too young to start.
Right.
There's a lot of big words. There's a lot of things that are intimidating.
Right.
There's a lot of perceptions, like you said, that whole air about being a president.
Right.
You assume that you're giving that title more power than it really realistically is. It comes with a set of accountabilities, not mistaking or diminishing that. But even these kindergartens and first graders can start to get into a BDPA.
Yes.
They can get in, we were just talking about NSBE Seek program or NSBE Junior chapter.
Yep.
We were talking about being able to just start and be fearless and try to find those programs and participation. You have to be in it to win it.
Yep.
Right.
And as I shared with the kids on Friday, the future, is right now, and you work on your right now because guess what? You're going to spend the rest of your life in your future, right?
So beautiful.
And so what happens with these kids, and amazing, this, that they come into what we call a smart zone, where they can be as smart as they want to be, and they just blossom. And you've seen these kids come in and sit at these computers for 4 hours and not look left or right, and they're totally focused on their lives and being the next whoever they want to be, right? And what we try to get them to focus on is you, right? So that they understand they're in it for them. You know what I mean? And it can be a big whirl if they take the challenge. And a lot of those kids are taking the challenge. It's just amazing, And you were at the event on Friday, and what was really nice is that when there was a pause, you could hear nothing in the room. There was no kids chattering, no kids playing around. They were locked into what was happening, right? The whole time, which was a beautiful thing.
It was.
Yep.
Well, I applaud you, Fred, for all your hard work with BDPA as a president of a major local company and all the wonderful things that you do in the community. Before we break, is there anything that you'd like to say to any of the young people out there?
Yep, I sure do. It's bdpatc.org. That's where you want to go register for our classes that are coming up in February. We have our 20-week classes. We're going to be doing level 1, level 2, level 3, and we're going to be taking on 1st through 12th graders. And you can be at any level.
Fantastic.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Fred.
Yep.
Have a great With me tonight is Mr. Tamar Boone. Sir, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing well. I'm doing very well. So thank you for taking the time to join us. And you are an incredible person. You have been participating in many of the Minnesota STEM activities, online watch parties. You've shown up, so I thank you for your support. And with that, you also have an incredible career and degree. And I think this youth in the audience and the parents will get a lot out of our conversation here this evening. So tell me a little bit about your title, what you do, where you work. Maybe set us up.
Sure. So I'm a product design engineer at Cummins, and basically what that is kind of I help support the manufacturing line from an engineering design standpoint. So if anything goes wrong with some of our products, I pretty much have to find a solution for it. And the particular products I do work on, they're generators for the RV and commercial mobile aspects. So most likely, if you have an RV or motorhome, there's a Cummins generator generator in there. And some of our commercial mobile trucks, like dog groomers or things like that, will have a Cummins generator in there.
Well, we're glad that they don't go out very often, because I know my Cummins generator runs all the time, especially out there, in the parks when you need it. So I appreciate that you are behind the scenes, making sure that quality and everything goes into those products. So you are also part of a national organization. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So I'm part of the National Society of Black Engineers, and there's a bunch of chapters all around the country. I first started when I was in college as a freshman. Pretty much was kind of pretty much an active member up until my senior year. Then I was the president of that chapter, and from there I just kind of continued to end up to professional realm. So now I'm the pre-collegiate initiative chair for our Minnesota Twin Cities chapter, or NSB TCPC, and there I help create STEM initiatives for children K through 12.
K through 12, fantastic. And I know that the last time that we talked, you're trying to start I call it NSB Junior, but NSBE Junior chapter. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing there and what kind of help you might need with that?
So for our NSB Junior chapter, let me back up a little bit. So we had a SEEK program. SEEK stands for the Summer Engineering Experience for Kids, and that was sponsored by Cummins, which is what I work for. So we had that program this summer, and we had a lot of interest from those parents that were in that program saying, hey, we wanted to get a NSB Junior chapter started. At least for the elementary school kids, it's kind of tough to do that just because their schedule kind of conflicts with my work schedule. But we're trying to start one at the high school level, which will be a lot more manageable since they can stay after school a lot longer than the middle school kids and elementary school kids. So it's kind of in the works, but trying to get there.
Sure. Well, because of your hard work behind the scenes and working with that, so you contributed greatly by making sure that the NSBE Seek program for elementary students happened at Earl Brown over in Brooklyn Center. One of our guest speakers had their children in that program, and she spoke highly of it, highly. So at that particular program, very young minds get a chance to explore the concepts of engineering, right? Are there any particular degrees or anything out of the NSBE Seek program that they want to make sure that the kids understand?
So at least how the Seek program is structured, they'll go through different aspects of engineering, maybe mechanical, civil, chemical, electrical, and things like that, and they'll have a competition or design project around the particular segment engineering. I think this year they made a glider, miniature robot car, and I forgot what the other one was, but it was kind of touching on different aspects of engineering for each week that they were working on.
Sure, but it was really cool. I popped in on one of the robotics programs, and the way that they explained it, you have a robot, but there's weight and there's incline, and so you have to have motors and torque, and you talked about the gliders. There's all these terms that the kids get familiar with without actually knowing that they're becoming familiar with it. So to the parents in the audience, this program is actually a really good program because it teaches all these basic fundamentals in a very, very engaging way. Now, you had college students that came in from out of town as well as you had engineering college students locally from the Twin Cities, St. Cloud, U of M, and across the Twin Cities. Can you share a little bit about how many local college students that it might take to run that program?
That depends on the size or scale that they're kind of trying to bring up. So if it all depends on the number of students, to be honest.
Sure.
I think this year I remember, at least for the week that I was there, during the presentation, they had about 3 to 4 college students, and then some other local volunteers there, whether they were with the company or Cummins, if they were with Cummins, or if they were kind of just local parent teachers just trying to help out.
Yeah, so the company and then the school probably all chipped in and made sure that the kids had a good time. That's fantastic. So we talk about these different type of degrees. When you were in 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, can you maybe share a little bit about what you thought you were going to go into when you got to college, or did you want to go to college?
So from the college standpoint, I really didn't have a choice. My parents were like, "You're going to college," and at least for me, I kind of really wasn't thinking about college all that much. But I was pretty good in football, so that's kind of where I wanted to go. Okay. So when I was in high school, I kind of figured out things may not go the way I wanted to. So that's kind of when I switched. Luckily, I had an older brother. He's an engineer as well, and he pretty much knew what he wanted to do from, I don't know, like 4th grade or something like that.
Oh, he's one of them. He's one of them that already know what they want to do when they grow up.
So he's a chemical biomolecular engineer right now. And I always had a backup plan. It was going to probably be like a mechanic. So I used to watch the Fast and Furious movies growing up. Oh, yeah. So I always wanted to, like build cars and things like that. Not necessarily drive the way they do, but like just build cars, make them look and perform that way. So I thought I wanted to be a mechanic. And then, I did my research and kind of looked at the salaries. I was like, oh, like the engineers make more money, so I went that route. So and I was always good at math and science classes, so engineering just seemed the right way. When I figured, I was like, okay, maybe this football is not going to work out. Let me switch to engineering. So instead of going to like football stuff, I go to engineering camps and things like that.
It's a good move. That's a very good move. So before we go, is there anything that you want to say to maybe the young folks or the parents of young folks out there as it relates to supporting and encouraging their students to get into this, maybe, get their math homework done and all that? What did your parents tell you to do that they had to make you get on the stick for?
So at least for me, my dad had a very creative way of doing it. So he would pay me and my siblings money for good grades, And you know, when you're a kid, you don't really have a job or you can't really get a job. So grades was kind of the way that we earned money. So he gave us a certain amount for, you know, A's and B's, and then if we got C's or below, we would owe him money. So
Wow,
yeah.
that's ridiculous. No disrespect to your father. He made you pay him back. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Which is probably right.
yeah. so he paid us for our grades. So you know, if better I did, the more money I got. So that's kind of how I kept my grades up, even when I didn't want to. Like, hey, I need some money.
Yeah. No, I get it.
So that, and then as far as just advice, I would say engineering in general is probably one of the best routes to go, just because it's so versatile. There's a lot of people that go in engineering and don't do anything related to engineering. Like, at least when I went to college, there was a lot of folks there that got engineering degrees that ended up working on Wall Street or doing business or doing whatever they felt like doing. It's very versatile. You get an engineering degree, you practically do whatever you want to do. And also, the sooner you figure out what you want to do, the easier it is going to be, just because if you know what you want to do, you know what you need to work on and things like that. It just makes your whole life so much easier. Instead of going to college, taking a bunch of classes and you don't know what to do, and then you end up wasting time and money. And college is expensive.
Student loans and all
Yeah.
that rack up. Absolutely. Well, Tamar, thank you very much, sir.
No
I
problem.
appreciate your time today. And to all the audience out there, engineering is definitely one of the directions that you should head. And we thank you for your time tonight.
No problem. Thank you
All
for
right,
having me
sir.
on.
All right. Be good.
Thanks.
All right. From engineering professionals, we also had the opportunity to hear from a graphics design expert. And so with these skills, with these jobs, with these particular people, you know that you can do these types of careers. It doesn't take much, it just takes a little bit of grit, fortitude, and perseverance, and you have to try. The biggest participant in this is you, and you will certainly reach new altitudes if you just give it a shot. On behalf of the Minnesota STEM Partnership, Altitude, and all the production workers here at SPNN, we thank you and have a wonderful day.